When you're born, you hit the ground running. It doesn't matter if you're born into a war-torn, developing country. No one cares. That's the hand you're dealt. Doesn't matter if you're born with genetic predispositions for mental illness. That's the hand you're dealt. Born with a physical deformity. That's just the hand you're dealt. You're born, you hit the ground running. You get one shot. People are blatantly, superficially judging you based on the results of whatever hand that you were dealt, as if you had any control over it, and you just got to deal with it. That's just what it is. So I say you're born hitting the ground running. Once you're born, your stats, so to speak, they're already determined. Your genetics are already determined. You have to play with that hand that you're dealt. And then you have these people that preach these vague, glittering generalities as a coping mechanism, either to make themselves feel better or try to gaslight other people to feeling better about their situation, or make themselves feel better about other people's situation, or whatever the case may be. But whether or not their intentions are good, the truth is the truth. I'd rather know the truth whether or not it's convenient or comforting. So basically, you have these people that basically, like I said, they're gaslighting you into thinking that reality is something that it's not. As if their essentialist, meritocracy, Judeo-Christian values supersede the laws of physics. As if you can outwork your genetics. As if, having an autoimmune disease, as if you did something to deserve that. As if hard work, whatever that means, equals success, whatever that means. An example of this sort of essentialist judging, if you will. If you're rich and mentally ill, you're eccentric and quirky. If you're poor and mentally ill, you're a nutcase maniac. If you're rich and do drugs and break the laws, you're a rock star. If you're poor and do drugs and break the laws, you're a delinquent. You're scum. You're taking the same attributes, and depending on the genetic predispositions, you're judging people based on those, and you're post hoc justifying it as if you're judging them on the objective criteria. And back to the people gaslighting people as if it's their fault for having a set of genetics that don't fit into the conventional society standards. As if everyone is born equal. If you don't fit into society's conventional standards, that's somehow your fault to these people. As if evolution, the laws of physics, etc., things that are out of our control, as if those things don't sort of predispose human beings, for example, to judge certain types of things and animals in a certain way and judge others in another way, which will result in, for example, some people being desired, some people being undesired, some people being rejects, etc. They talk as if traits, especially human traits, aren't on a normative distribution curve. Like when you say rich, like they're saying rich as if you can have the rich without the poor, tall without the short, beautiful without the ugly, etc. As if moving the distribution curve somehow eliminates those two extremes, ends of the bell curve. Right? These people spewing these coping mechanisms as if the entire duration of your existence can't be immense suffering. Another example of this sort of positivity, this toxic positivity, gaslighting, would be, people that turn to escapisms such as video games instead of real life, right? Or, in real life in quotations, because it's still, real life, but whatever. You know what I mean? So, as if these people are somehow wrong for determining that these escapisms are more enjoyable than their quote unquote real life existence. As if they're somehow going against some type of cosmic doctrine, or so to speak, like they're doing something wrong to these toxic positivity cultists, if you will. You're playing video games. You're just escaping because you're not trying hard enough. You're not working hard. You don't have motivation. Whatever, insert generic cliche, glittering generality. I don't know about you, but I think to most people, slaying the dragon lord of the underworld beats overnight stalker at Walmart every time. You ever notice how it's like these people subconsciously nudge people into their, quote unquote, genetically determined positions? If you're 7 feet, you're gonna be a professional basketball player. If the short, ugly, bald guy, he's gonna be a janitor or something, some, lesser respected occupation. It's like they want you to accept your genetically determined role and not speak about it, not either complain or describe it in an objectively, logically rational way. Just accept it. Just be blissfully ignorant. Because that logic stuff, that's too hurtful. That's too painful. Oh man. Just accept your little role. Right? We don't want, two opposite ends of the bell curve to intermingle in rational discourse, because that may stir up some sort of cosmic order, if you will. If you speak up in a rational way, you're somehow the bad guy for simply describing reality. It's as if they misunderstand evolution via natural selection. They always say survival of the fittest. It's like they misunderstand what that actually means. They'll try to justify observations of reality in a post hoc way. Oh, this organism, it evolved to do this for this specific reason. No. Survival of the fittest means the survivors are deemed fit. It's not that the giraffes evolved the long neck to reach the tall trees. No. The giraffes with the short necks died because they couldn't reach the trees, and the giraffes with the longer necks could reach the trees. Therefore, they passed on the genes to have long necks. So you're missing that focal point that your species doesn't inherently have to survive. You're missing that point that all organisms aren't specifically evolved to survive and thrive and pass on their genes. There were and there still are and will continue to be organisms that aren't adapted for their environment, such as the quote-unquote rejects of society. It's like they're completely ignoring the elephant in the room of this exceptionalist mindset, this survivorship bias. Oh man, how did we get to this point? How did we get to all of these industrialized and modern luxuries that we have? A lot of people had to die gruesome deaths in order for one quadrant of the world to have modern luxuries. The other majority of the other quadrant of the earth has to be slaves. For immense wealth, there has to be immense poverty. It's a zero-sum game. They're finite resources. All this moral grandstanding, it's just guilt tripping you into doing something that they want you to do. Like, for example, the word lazy. You're lazy if you don't do this thing. You're lazy if you don't do that thing. Is it lazy or is it philosophically opposed? Is it lazy or physically unable to? Or mentally unable to? If they wouldn't say it if they were philosophically opposed to not doing something. They wouldn't call themselves lazy. They would say, well, I disagree with that philosophically. If they had some sort of physical or mental disorder, you wouldn't call that person lazy. You would say, well, they're unable to do it. So I don't see where the room for this pejorative lazy, because it's always used as a pejorative. It's never just like some sort of objective, non-biased description. It's always a pejorative. It's always some sort of way to admonish someone in sort of a moral grandstanding, so that they have the moral high ground sort of way. This holier than thou sort of thing. Is laziness actually a thing? That's a real open-ended question. That's a genuine question. I'm not just doing what they're doing, morally grandstanding. I'm actually asking a question. You know, they're always going to blame the person describing the unfortunate reality instead of the causes of the unfortunate reality. You know, there's no lesson to be learned in world hunger or infanticide or when the lion eats the zebra alive. There's no lesson to be learned there. It's just what happens, and it's unfortunate depending on how you look at it. It's always the person that simply points out the unfortunate reality. It's always their fault, right? No, wrong. When you take reality and then you make your own decision on how you react to it or go on from there, you're always blamed for it, as if it's your fault. Like, for example, society, forget what they say on paper. You always got to look at the de facto, what their actions say. They're blatantly telling you what they value. They pay ball throwers millions of dollars while the majority of people starve. While the majority of people don't have clean water. I don't care what some type of propaganda PR says or what some type of law says. Their actions, the de facto, tells you what they value. There's not it's going to inherently get better because of positive vibes. That's not a thing. There is no such thing as karma. There's no such thing as cosmic justice. There's no lesson to be learned. There's no value in struggle. But what do I know? I'm just some rambling nutcase.